Hi friends, Suzanne here. Welcome to another Wildcard Wednesday video on my YouTube channel and blog. For today's project, I am featuring the stamp set Paradise Palms. Now this stamp set actually comes with a set of dies called Palms dies. I'm not going to use them today, but just in case you are interested, they are bundled together at 10% off. So with no further ado, I will get into the process here of my card design. So I'm using the Stamparatus and I have a watercolor sheet here. I am treating it with my embossing buddy. Stampin' Up used to sell that. They don't anymore. Maybe they'll bring it back. I hope so. And I have the palm trunks on my Stamparatus. And the reason why I'm using the Stamparatus is because I like to double stamp with the Versamark ink, especially on watercolor paper, which is what I'm using. And I didn't show it here in the video, but I did stamp the palms and the trunks twice. This is a little shot glass that I use to sort of press on my Stamparatus to make sure I get a good impression with that, because watercolor paper is bumpy and textured. So sometimes you, and especially when you're working with Versamark ink, I did not know if I was getting a good impression or not because it's clear. So I only got to see my impression here when I sprinkled on my white embossing powder. So that's just a dry brush that I'm wiping off the excess particles of the embossing powder. So this is my heat tool, and because the paper is very thick, I have to heat it from the front and not my usual from the back that I have done for years. Because it's thick, it would take too long and it would warp the card. So I have to heat it up from the front. So this is Delicate Surface Frog Tape. I got mine from Rona. I think it's now actually in Canada, it was bought out by Lowe's. So now it's going to be a Lowe's store, I guess, or anyway, you can find that at a hardware store. How's that? So I'm using my Stamparatus removable door for this taping. I do have another non-porous surface that I could use for this purpose as well, but because I was using the Stamparatus and it was there, I decided to use it. So here I'm creating my horizon, and I have wet, half of my watercolor paper here, and I'm saturating it. And then I have two different blues, Paradise Point and Bermuda Bay. I could have used Coastal Cabana instead of Bermuda Bay as well. So I squeezed the lid, and now I'm taking a bit of water, and basically wherever you laid down water before is where the water or the color is going to go. So it won't go up above that horizon. And I do have my Stamparatus door at an angle. I'm just resting it on an ink pad. So it is on an angle so that the water will pool towards the bottom. Here I'm picking up some more Bermuda Bay, and I am just picking up the ink from the lids. But what you could do, if because I had somebody ask me about re-inkers, you can drop a re-inker in the lid there, and add the water there. You don't have to squeeze so hard on the ink pad. All right, I brought in a paper towel to help me sop up any extra liquid, and I am definitely tilting this so to make the blend of the two blues go very well. So now I'm bringing in Sahara Sand because it's sand color. This is probably one of my favorite neutrals. I love Sahara Sand. It is, yeah, I think it's one of my favorites, to be honest. I also like black, but Sahara Sand is one of my favorite neutrals. So I did, and it's so light, and it is a sand color. So it can be a little on the lighter side. So I daubed up the extra water that was in there, squeezed the lid again, and I will get just a little bit more color. And I'm not worried so much about reusing my my blue water there in that little dish. It's very faint, so it's not going to mess up too much of the color. If I was doing like major watercolor, then I would have a bowl for clean water and a bowl for not so clean water. But for this, I'm not worried. So you can see I'm really saturating. I want a hard line between the blue and the Sahara sand. And I might add that I dried my blue before I put on my Sahara sand because I wanted that harsh line. I wanted it to look like, a beginning of the ocean. And oh, here is my heat tool, and up close you can see that there's a number 1 and a number 2. I am heating this and drying this on level 1. I'm not going full on level 2. This is an acrylic or like plastic plate, so you do have to be very cautious about that. Okay, again in the tilted easel formation, I've turned my page around and I've saturated it with water. So again, squeezing the lid and getting a little bit of this Daffodil Delight. I want that as, it's kind of like, I would say this is morning. Or it could be a sunset, I guess. I'm not sure. It's make-believe, so you never know. It can be what you like. But I am saturating, and I did put a lot of water down first. I want these colors to blend. I want it seamless. Seamless between Daffodil Delight and Pumpkin Pie, and I will even bring in Real Red. So here goes the Pumpkin Pie, and again it's on angle, so all of the water is dripping down. We're using gravity. I'm just going to put that aside, wash off my brush a little bit, try to blend the yellow and the orange together. And I'm sopping up any excess. Now comes Real Red. Now Real Red has a really big, strong pigment, so you don't need a lot. I put a lot of water, and I started over top of the orange, or the Pumpkin Pie. Sorry, my mind went blank there just a second. I went over the orange first, and then I drifted it down. If you got one spot of dry page or watercolor paper, that Real Red, which is highly pigmented, will grab. So like I said, my whole point here was to get a beautiful water painterly, like a blend of colors. So I am using a paper towel to sop up. It gets a little moist in here, and probably the best thing to do if you wanted to dry this is just to let it sit for, a couple hours and let that paper air dry, because once you're taped down to that Stamparatus door, it is going to dry very straight. I, of course, am impatient, and because I wanted to make this video in a timely manner, I'm already behind, what's new. I felt like I needed to just use my heat tool and dry, but I did want to share with you that the whole process, and I always love to reveal, as I'm removing, and this is slowly, but I will trim off that little white border anyway. This is slightly bigger than a normal card front size. So I'm going to trim it down to 4 by 5 1/4. And it's funny because I never think that, I think everybody's like, familiar on how to trim stuff. And I have had a couple of requests about how to trim something. So I'm going to show you in this video just how I trim up this card front. But first, I'm putting on some Wink of Stella right at the horizon. I'm not putting it all over the blue. I don't want it to be like too in your face. And by the end of the card design, you don't even really see this. But I did like it. It just adds that, sea. So here we go with my little trimmer. I trim off the least amount that I could, and I size it up to 4. And then I trim off, I don't want to lose any of my sky, so I just take a tiny bit off there, and then I measure to 5 1/4 and trim that off. So I have more sand coming off than my sky. Okay, so here is my Tombow multi-purpose glue, and I have said, this is what I said in my last video, and if you weren't privy to that, I basically have started to notice when I do a thin line with my Tombow, I start seeing it from the front of my card design. So, you know, I adhere it, you know, with a thin line, and I see that thin line from the front, especially when it's thinner paper. So what I mean, and this is thick paper, but I did want to coat it completely because there was a lot of water on this. So I did use the bottom part of my Tombow glue, and I smoothed out any of those glue lines just to get really good adhesion. And this is a basic black piece of cardstock, and you can see it's already straightening out. Now I have just basic white, regular weight stamping paper for my sentiment, and I've inked up with StazOn ink. My favorite ink to use with the red rubber stamps, not the photopolymer, but red rubber, and it's because I get a beautiful crisp image. I don't get fuzziness. The image, the words are very, very clear. So this is, I think it's called the tri-edge. I can't remember. I can't remember what this punch is, but it's still valid. It has a corner rounder. It has a little decorative corner, and there's a line kind of in the middle of this corner, and I'm able to line up my little piece of paper and punch a hole in the side because I'm going to use some linen thread to adhere this to the card. So funnily enough, I felt like the sentiment, which was, what does the sentiment say? Wishing you a warm and beachy kind of day. And I put it right over the horizon. And, you know, I didn't actually want to, but it just looked good there. I wanted it elsewhere. But because I'm going to be kind of tying it with sort of a beachy, the linen thread is kind of, I don't know, I kind of went with that beachy string look. So I adhered it with dimensionals first, and I took probably, I don't know, 30 inches here. I cut it in half, and then one of the halves I folded in half, and then I cut that in half, and then I folded those two pieces in half. I took the little loop, and it was easy for me to go the other way. So I put this little loop in the hole, and then I used the loop and I fed the ends through the loop. So it kind of has, like, you know how some sailors, they have all those funny ropes and stuff. Yeah. So this is a beachy feel, but it's not a sailor's thing, but it's kind of beachy, right? Like you can almost think that a hammock could be used with those linen thread bits. Oh my gosh, I'm too heavy to actually have that work out, but let's just pretend. All right, so here I'm doing it with the other side. I'm just feeding through the loop. I will have the list of all the products that I used. Of course, I do a comprehensive list on my blog. It's little pictures so you can see the colors I used and that particular name of the punch, which I cannot remember. And, you know, that's okay. There are links in the description bar below, or the box below, the See More section. And yeah, so you will be able to see all the supplies I used today listed below. And those links will take you to my Canadian online store. And I don't know if you're familiar, but in the online store, you can just make a wish list. So you can say, I want, this, this, and this, and you can make notes. So you might not have it in your budget this month to purchase that funky punch, but maybe you might have, maybe it's, and I don't quote me on this, but maybe there's a sale coming up or something like that. And you would be able to utilize some of the items in your wish list. So it is a funky new thing that's gone on with the new online store. So hopefully you'll check that out. Okay, so everybody, do not judge me. Do not judge me for the use of these dimensional adhesives. Don't do it. I know you're going to shake your head. It's because I wanted to make sure that this particular watercolor paper was laying flat. So I have a few more little things. I have these faux sea glass shapes. So I was a part of my own product share. I do a product share every time there's a new catalog, and I do it right at the very beginning so that nobody gets back ordered or anything. I stay up to like 3 o'clock in the morning ordering all the things for all my customers. So if you're ever interested in doing a product share and actually getting the products, I'm your gal. So look me up if you're looking for a product share for the next catalog. I only do one, and it's really time sensitive. I always put the link out and I do a little advertisement. So if you haven't followed me on Facebook, that'd be a great place to learn about that too. All right, so and I'm playing around with these sea glass shapes. They're so cool. They come in a couple different colors, couple different shapes. Again, they'll be listed below in the See More section or on the supply section on my blog. So thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.